They found her toothbrush still wet, and her phone charging on the nightstand, untouched. The front door was locked from the inside, and there was no sign of struggle, just silence. Like she was erased. The same day he signed a deal worth $43 million. His wife, Jenna, disappeared. Before we dive in, if this story moves you, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell to keep the stories coming your way. Just a heads up, we don't just share stories here, we invite you to experience them. There's a little quiz at the end, just for fun. It's our way of saying thanks for watching closely and spotting the subtle moments others might miss. Be the first to answer. Don't let someone else steal your spotlight. Now, let's talk about Daniel Knox, the man who had it all, until everything that mattered vanished without a trace. Daniel Knox wasn't born into money. He grew up in a rust-stained town in Indiana, where dreams dried out in factory air. By his early 30s, Daniel had clawed his way into tech, long nights, code-stained fingers, and a vision he refused to let go of. And beside him, always, was Jenna. Not flashy, not loud, just steady. She brought him diner coffee during 2 a.m. coding marathons. She proofread every pitch. She was the first to believe, even before investors returned his calls. And on the morning of the acquisition, Daniel stood in a San Francisco high-rise, staring at his bank app while his phone buzzed with congratulations. $43 million. Overnight. The dream realized. He turned to text Jenna, but there was no reply, no answer to his calls, just one read message. And then nothing. When Daniel got home, her coat still hung by the door. Her favorite shoes were under the bench. No signs of packing, no travel plans, no notes. The security cam had glitched at 2:14 p.m., static. He called the police. They were polite, but skeptical. Maybe she needed space. Happens more often than you'd think after big changes like this, one said. But Daniel knew Jenna. She didn't just vanish. 3 days later, his mother called. "I told you she wasn't the right one," she said flatly. "She didn't belong in this world you're in now. She knew it. We all did." Daniel's stomach twisted. His sister chimed in from the background. "She was sweet, Dan, but too ordinary." Ordinary. The woman who held him up when he had nothing, who turned their grocery budget into something edible, who wore the same 2 dresses to every investor dinner so they could afford one more prototype. Too ordinary? Weeks turned into months. Daniel offered rewards, hired private investigators, flew to places Jenna had never been, chasing shadows. Nothing. Not a single trace. Whispers started to circle in the industry. Some said Jenna took the money and ran. Some said she staged her own exit. Others, crueler, suggested Daniel had something to do with it. But Daniel Knox kept searching. And in interviews, when they asked about his success, he always answered with the same hollow smile. "I'd trade every dollar for one more morning with her." He started rereading their texts. He noticed things he had missed, phrases that sounded like goodbyes. The last message she sent? "I hope this new life brings you everything you dreamed of." It was sent at 2:13 p.m., 1 minute before the camera feed went dark. And still, no goodbye note, no withdrawals, no sightings, just silence. Daniel still visits their favorite coffee shop every Sunday, orders 2 lattes, waits. They keep the second one warm, just in case she walks in, but she never does. The barista, a kid with a lip ring and tired eyes, doesn't ask questions anymore. He just nods when Daniel walks in and starts making the order. Extra cinnamon, almond milk, Jenna's favorite. Her name still lives on that tiny cup, still scrawled in permanent marker, the J curling like a promise. Daniel doesn't sip hers. He never does. He just lets it sit across from him, watching the foam shrink, the heat die. Every week, it feels like a funeral that never ends. His therapist told him to stop doing it. said it was holding space for a ghost. But Daniel doesn't believe in ghosts. He believes in memory and guilt and silence that doesn't answer back. He tried once, just once, to throw away her things, opened the closet, stood there for nearly an hour, gripping the fabric of her faded denim jacket like it was stitched from her skin. He sat on the floor instead, cried into it until the scent was gone. That was 7 months ago. Now Daniel sleeps on the couch most nights. The bed's too wide, too loud in its emptiness. Sometimes he wakes up thinking she's in the kitchen, that he heard the familiar clink of her spoon stirring sugar into coffee, but it's just the house groaning with time. Even the walls miss her. His mother calls now and then, less often. They never talk about Jenna. His mom pretends it's for his healing. But Daniel knows better. They didn't just tolerate Jenna, they endured her. She was too quiet for them. Too low-key, his sister once whispered at a family dinner, drunk on overpriced wine. No one said it directly, but the message was clear. Jenna didn't belong at the country clubs, the black tie galas, the new world Daniel's wealth had bought. She was a kindergarten teacher, loved finger paints and story time and kids who still thought glitter was magic. Not the kind of woman who wore diamonds for brunch or cared what brand of handbag she carried. Daniel once overheard his aunt, sharp, brittle, the kind who smiled with her teeth, say, "She's nice, but wouldn't she be happier with someone simpler?" Simpler. Like happiness required complexity. Like love needed a resume. Daniel had confronted his family exactly once, 6 weeks after Jenna disappeared. It was his cousin's engagement party, champagne towers, caviar on spoons, people he barely knew hugging him too hard, asking too many questions about next ventures. He cornered his mother in the garden, the same place Jenna had spilled wine on her own dress 2 summers before, and laughed about it while the rest of the family winced. "Did you say something to her?" Daniel asked, voice low. His mother didn't blink. "I always told her the truth." "What truth?" "That she was a phase, that you'd outgrow her." Daniel stepped back like she'd slapped him. "She was my wife." "She was scared of what you were becoming," she said coolly. "And I think, deep down, so were you." He didn't reply, just walked away. He hasn't attended another family event since, but the pressure hasn't let up. His sister sent him a box last week, with old letters Jenna had written, ones he'd never seen. They weren't love letters. They were journal entries, torn from a notebook, folded like secrets. Some dated months before she vanished. In one, she wrote, "They smile at me like I'm a charity case. I know I'm not enough for this world, but I also know Daniel used to laugh with his whole body before the money. Now he calculates before he breathes. I miss the man I married. I think he misses me too, but can't say it out loud." Daniel read that line 3 times, then folded the paper and stared out the window for hours. He started wondering, had he changed? Had the success they worked so hard for, together, become the wedge that split them apart? One of her last entries chilled him. "If I leave, I won't make a scene. I'll just slip out. I want him to wonder, not because I hate him, but because I loved him too much to become invisible in his shadow." Daniel shook holding that page. But still, it wasn't a goodbye. It was a whisper, a maybe, a wound. He tracked down the handwriting, had it analyzed. The report came back, authentic, consistent, emotional strain present, whatever that meant. And yet, one thing bothered him more than anything else. In the letter dated 3 days before she vanished, she signed her name, Jenna Rose Knox. She hadn't signed her full name like that since they were first married, and that name, Rose, meant something. It was her mother's name. The mother she lost in her teens, the mother she never talked about without tears. Daniel dug up old boxes from the attic, stuff from their first apartment, the kind of boxes you tape shut and forget. Inside one, he found a photo album. Not of them, but of Jenna and her mother, smiling in parks, sitting on stoops, dressed in dollar store Halloween costumes. Ordinary. Behind one photo, tucked deep, was a receipt from a little inn in Vermont, paid in cash. Room 7. Dated 4 days after Jenna vanished. Daniel's pulse thudded. He called the inn. The woman on the phone was kind and careful. "We don't release guest information," she said. He explained, pleaded. Finally, a pause. "We had a guest check in under the name Rose." His breath caught. "She said she needed rest. Left no contact info. Stayed 3 nights. Didn't speak much." "Was she alone?" Daniel asked, voice cracking. Another pause. "Far as I know. But I remember her saying, 'Sometimes it's better to disappear while they still remember you smiling.'" Daniel hung up without saying goodbye. That night, he took Jenna's latte home, poured it into her favorite mug, sat in the dark, and whispered her name, Jenna. One more time. Like maybe, just maybe, it still reached her, somewhere. But the only response was the soft hum of the refrigerator and the low tick of the old wall clock she used to wind religiously every Sunday evening. He stared at the mug, at the steam curling like breath. Then it faded, just like everything else. Daniel Knox didn't cry that night. Tears, he realized, were for grief with clarity. And this wasn't grief. It was limbo. The next morning he made a list. Not of suspects, not of leads, of moments. The first time Jenna ever said his name. The way she'd hum in the shower. The little skip in her step when she wore new socks. The way she always left the last bite for him, even when it was the best one. He made it through 47 memories before he broke. He didn't finish the list. Later that week, his sister texted, "Mom's birthday, dinner at the house. Come, please." He almost deleted it. But something in him, some loose, frayed thread, tugged. He went. His mother greeted him with practiced warmth. A forced smile, a quick hug. The house smelled the same, old wood polish and ambition. Pictures lined the walls, but not one of Jenna. They sat down for dinner, and no one mentioned her name. No one looked at the chair she used to sit in. It was filled now by his sister's new fiancé, a hedge fund guy with sharp collars and a sharper laugh. Halfway through the meal, his aunt leaned in. "So," she said lightly, "are you seeing anyone?" Daniel looked up slowly, fork still in hand. "I'm still married," he said. The table froze. His sister winced. His mother cleared her throat. "It's been nearly a year, Daniel." He put his fork down. "You all act like she died." "She left," his mother said quietly. "There's a difference." Daniel stood. "She didn't just leave. You all pushed her out." "Don't do this now," his sister whispered. "Not here. I don't remember you defending her when Mom called her small town, or when Dad told me I'd regret marrying someone without a college pedigree." "Stop," his mother said, sharper now. Daniel's voice stayed calm. "Jenna made me feel like a man even before I had a dime. And the moment I made money, you all decided she was disposable." "She left you, Daniel," his mother snapped. "She made that decision." "No," he said, picking up his coat. "She made a choice, after being told over and over that she wasn't enough." He left before dessert. The next morning, he opened the envelope. It had been sitting in his mailbox for 3 days. No return address, just his name, Daniel Knox, written in Jenna's handwriting. Inside, a single sheet, folded once, a short note. "I didn't want to go, but I needed to. I don't belong in the life they built for you, and I was starting to lose myself trying to fit into it. Maybe you weren't the one who changed. Maybe I was. Tell the stars good night for me." There was no date, no location, nothing else. But the phrase, "Tell the stars good night for me," it echoed something deep. It was what she used to whisper every night on their balcony, just before bed. They'd sit in silence, hands wrapped around mugs of peppermint tea, and she'd look up at the sky and say it like a prayer. Even when the sky was cloudy, Daniel folded the letter back, put it in the drawer next to his keys. He didn't know what it meant, but it didn't feel like closure. It felt like pause. He began visiting her old school, just sitting in the car across the street, watching the children pour out in waves at 3 p.m. Some days a teacher would walk a kid to a waiting parent. Other days, kids would run across the lot, backpacks swinging wildly, shouting goodbyes. One day, a girl stopped in the middle of the crosswalk, stared at his car. She had the same hazel eyes as Jenna. Freckles, maybe 9 years old. Daniel's heart skipped. He rolled down the window. She didn't move, just tilted her head, curious. Then a woman ran up, took her hand, and they disappeared down the block. It wasn't Jenna, but for a moment, the ache twisted into something he couldn't name. A shadow of what could have been. Later that month, he visited Jenna's favorite bookstore. It was closing down. Business had been slow. The owner recognized him. "You're Daniel," she said softly. "Jenna used to talk about you." He nodded. "She came here once after you. You know, after the big deal. Bought a whole stack of travel books. Said she was mapping an escape. I thought it was a joke. She looked tired." "Did she say where she was going?" he asked. The woman shook her head. But she left this. She disappeared into the back and returned with a book. It was The Art of Getting Lost. Inside the cover was a handwritten note: "If anyone ever comes looking, tell them I'm not lost. Just finally quiet." Daniel turned the pages. Between chapter 5 and 6, a photograph was tucked. Jenna, hair longer, standing on a hill somewhere green and foggy. She was smiling, but not the way she used to. It was a small, private smile, like the kind you save for yourself. He took the book home, laid it on her side of the bed, didn't open it again. That night, he called his mother. "I don't need you to understand," he said, "but I need you to stop pretending like she was never real." There was silence. "She was kind," his mother said eventually, "but she didn't belong here." "She belonged with me," he replied, "but none of us made room for her to stay." The next Sunday, Daniel returned to the coffee shop. The usual table, the 2 lattes, but this time, a small envelope was already sitting on the table. His name on the front. Inside, a plane ticket. One way, to Nova Scotia, and a sticky note. "Room 7 still smells like cinnamon." He looked up, scanned the room, but no one looked familiar. No one stared. He folded the ticket, tucked it in his wallet. Didn't leave the latte untouched this time. He sipped hers, eyes closed, and whispered her name again. Jenna, like he was saying yes to the silence, and maybe, just maybe, to the next chapter. Sometimes the deepest kind of loss isn't death. It's disconnection. When someone you love walks away, not because they stopped loving you, but because they stopped recognizing themselves when they were with you. Daniel Knox didn't lose Jenna in one moment. He lost her slowly, in each silence that wasn't addressed, each moment she felt overlooked, each time he let someone else speak louder than her value. And maybe she didn't vanish. Maybe she just stepped out of a life that refused to bend for her. Not to punish, but to preserve what little of herself she had left. Here's the truth most people won't say out loud. Love isn't just about holding on. Sometimes it's about learning why someone let go, and being brave enough to ask what part of you made them feel they had to. Remember, there's always a quiz at the end. Be the first to answer. Don't let someone else steal your spotlight. Drop your answer in the comments below. And while you're here, let us know where you're watching from. If this story stirred something in you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss another voice that echoes like this one. Until next time, hold space for the ones you love, even the ones who walk away. Quiz. How many times did you hear the name Daniel Knox in this story?